Welcome back to Celebrity Death Roulette. Today's episode is actually the 10th Roulette Wheel of Shame, or Wheel of Tragedy, Wheel of Death that we have done. So some of you guys, a lot of you guys seem to enjoy these. It's fun to do, although it's uncomfortable if I don't have enough information. I still apologize for Dorothy Parker in the last one, but we're ready to roll. Again, you know the rules. There's 10 names that Troy randomly picked from findadeath.com. All these stories are on findadeath.com, and they roll out. I got 2 minutes to riff. I have not studied. I don't know what names are coming up. I mean, it's been a while since we've done these. I still have this boot on my leg from the surgery, and it sort of makes it uncomfortable to sit here. But that's why we've been delayed on these things. But anyway, Celebrity Death Roulette, number 10. So let's go. Name number 1, Diana Dors. Diana Dors was the British Marilyn, well, they describe her always as the British Marilyn Monroe. And, actually kind of a cross between Monroe and Jane Mansfield, I think. She did some great movies earlier on in her career, and at the end kind of ended up sort of being a cult hero. I believe that she had shown up in an Adam Ant video, much like when Dusty Springfield showed up in a Pet Shop Boys video. Well, not much because Dusty Springfield was a singer, but Diana Dors was an actress. She, I know she was married to Richard Dawson for a while, and I think they had a kid together. I know that she had a kid, a son, and I remember that she was into codes, and they thought that Diana Dors had like millions of dollars stored away. And she died, and I think that she left behind a code. And, for years and years, they were trying to crack this code. They thought that might be the secret to where Diana Dors' money went. And I don't think they ever cracked the code, or they did crack the code, and it didn't make any sense. But they didn't do anything with it. But her son was working on that. Actually, I remember that documentary. There was like a show, Where Are Diana Dors' Millions? But she ended up being, there's some bad pictures of her, like there were, Joan Crawford and people like that in the tabloids. And she died, I believe she died of cancer. And that had to have been at least in the 80s if she was in the Adam Ant video, maybe a little bit later than that. And I don't know if she's actually buried somewhere, if somebody has her cremation, that I am not aware of. But she was beautiful, and she was married to Dickie Dawson. And rest in peace, Diana Dors. Rest in peace, Diana Dors. Okay. Eddie Cochran. Why are these names coming out? Eddie Cochran. I fought the law. I know that was, what was... He was... God, he's got one big song, for God's sake, and I don't know it. Not off the top of my head. And he was a singer, kind of rockabilly, kind of... I know that he wrote it at the Grafton Hotel on Sunset Boulevard. And the hell, I cannot remember the name of that song. I don't have my phone, because actually we're recording it with my phone. But I remember he was killed in a car accident. And I think he was on his way from, I remember when I took pictures of it, I think it was from London to Bristol is where the accident happened. And I think they took his body to like a convent or something like that. And the nuns took care of him or something like that. Summertime Blues. God, that's the song. Summertime Blues. And he is buried at Forest Lawn, the same cemetery where Karen Carpenter used to be buried before they exhumed her, and Glenn, what's his name, from Roseanne. And also, if you ever see the movie The Girl Can't Help It, the beginning of the movie. That movie is incredible looking, and Jane Mansfield looks incredible in it. And they had these really interesting musical numbers in it. I think Little Richard was one of them, and Eddie Cochran was one of them. And it's just an awesome looking movie. And these odd sort of intermission type entire music numbers are being played in that. And I remember being at that accident location, and there being there's a marker there. I think it's probably a plaque now, and this is probably 30 years since I visited it. But I know there's more to Eddie Cochran, but I'm glad that I remembered that the name of that song. I even forgot that. James Garner. So of course, the Rockford Files. I did a video about the Rockford Files because I like James Garner, and his in the Rockford Files, his trailer was in the parking lot of a cool restaurant that's still there in Malibu. Luckily, didn't burn. Called Paradise Cove. And Paradise Cove was such a cool place. Back when I first got to LA in the early 90s, it was still kind of a little, dusty parking lot. Now, of course, it's all developed, and it costs $20 to park there. But that's where his trailer was parked in the show. And it's also the same place where the Beatles posed for their Surfin' Safari album cover, with them, holding the surfboard. So James Garner, when he died, I think it was natural causes. He was up there in age, and he was Maverick was another one of them too. I think that he was in The Replacement with Doris Day that Marilyn was supposed to do. Somebody's Got to Give. I think it was James Garner and Doris Day. I have one of his golf tees, actually. I got that from someone. But, and his house was so cool. Oh my God, he has such a cool house. And his wife lived there until she died. I've heard, I remember the daughter blocked me on Twitter because she didn't like what I had to say, I guess. I didn't say anything nasty because I really liked. Oh yeah, and then above James Garner lived Steve McQueen. And I guess James Garner kind of was obsessed with Steve McQueen, kind of in a hero worshipy way. And Steve McQueen didn't have the patience for it. And I remember that Steve McQueen, it was in, that he peed on James Garner's roof, or was it vice versa, that James Garner peed from above onto Steve McQueen's roof? I don't remember, but I don't know. I like James Garner a lot. So watch the video if you can. I thought it was really, all those locations that we found for it were really, really good. I love that. Rockford Files, just watch it just for the background stuff, like all the time. Just looking in the background, pausing it. Lawanda. If you get a chance to listen to some of Lawanda Page's comedy, it's really funny. It's really raunchy. And she had an album called Watch It, Sucker. She was Aunt Esther on the show Sanford and Son. And Red Fox knew her from, traveling around on the Chitlin circuit doing the, mostly black clubs. And he hired her to be an Aunt Esther because he knew she'd be, good as a Bible thumper and, the preaching and the whole bit. And I remember it was not, I was read it about her, she was uncomfortable with doing she wasn't an actress, she was a comic, and they gave her the script and she memorized the entire script, not just her lines, and the producers were going to let her go because they didn't think she could do it. So Red Fox said to the producers, give me the weekend. And he worked with her one-on-one, and she went in and basically nailed it, and she became Aunt Esther, one of the most popular characters on Sanford and Son. She was in, gosh, she was nasty. I mean, she was so vulgar. She was in Shakes the Clown. I remember when RuPaul did her first single, You Better Work, Lawanda did some of the voice on that. And I just watched this really terrible horror movie. It was just like her, there was a ghost or there was a monster in the house. But her scene was quite funny because she I don't know, it was just something that was going around on Instagram for a while, not that long ago. She was buried, cremated, and she's at Hillside? No, Inglewood Cemetery. Under her real name is Alberta Peel. She was the bronze goddess of fire back in the day. She was a dancer, and she would do, fire eating, and but she was like almost a borderline burlesque erotic dancer. She's beautiful. And Alberta Peel was her real name. I'm not sure where that came from, Lawanda. I liked Lawanda a lot. Anton Yelchin. Ooh. Anton Yelchin, he was Chekhov in the Star Trek movies with Chris Pine when he played Shatner. And his parents were Russian professional ice skaters. And I believe he was born in Russia. And they emigrated. They got asylum when their particular organization were performing in America. They claimed asylum, and that's how they lived here. And Anton Yelchin became very successful. He did a lot of independent movies, and one of those independent movies actually they filmed it at Hollywood Forever Cemetery, and in the background of his own movie is where he ended up being buried, which is really kind of interesting. But he, sadly, it was a freak accident what happened to him. He was driving I just did a story about him not that long ago. I forget what kind of vehicle it was. And he had a steep driveway, and he got to the top of the driveway, and I can only imagine that he got out because he was supposed to close the gate manually or something. He was going to a band rehearsal, and something happened to the car. Actually, he thought it was in park, but it probably wasn't, because this car had a particular gear shift that they weren't quite positive how it worked. And it rolled and pinned him against the gate, and he was there for, I guess, quite a couple of hours. Well, I don't think they found him for like 12 hours. Was it that long? He'd been dead for quite a while. He was pinned between the gate and his car and suffocated. And I just can't imagine not being able to draw breath because your it's like that. Oh no, it's awful. An awful thought that you can't expand your chest because you're so crushed. And he's buried at Hollywood Forever Cemetery. There's a life-size statue of him there, and odds are quite good because he died quite a long time ago. Both of his parents, one or the other, will be there because they are there every single day. God bless them. They are grieving still. Right. Like they'd never not. Bert Convy. I know there's more about Bert Convy than just being a game show host. He was a game show host. I think it was Gambit was his show. Oy. I should know these. I should know those shows. And I know that when Bert Convy died, it was cancer, I think. And boy, I'm not up on this one at all. For some reason, Burt Reynolds comes to mind. For some reason, Bill Bixby comes to mind. And I don't know if they have associations with Bert Convy. But I remember when Bert Convy's funeral happened, and that was like a big deal. I mean, I was sort of surprised at the reaction that of the people. It was such a huge deal that when Bert Convy died, and I think it was in Century City where he lived when he died. Gosh, he was, of that ilk, like, it was not Alan Ludden and Gary Moore, and there was these, Wink Martindale, who is still with us. I'm trying to think of some of the other classes. Bob Eubanks, who's still with us. I forget the guy, the dating game guy. I wonder if he's still alive or not. But, I know but it was Gambit, I think. Was that with Ruta Lee? Who was with the dice on the table? It was Gambit. And he was on that one with the televisions. Oh, somebody just sent me a clip of that too, with Dick Martin and his wife, where the husband and wife would answer questions and they would be there on televisions in front of them. I think that was Bert Convy's show. Oh, what was the name of it? It used to be like Jack Klugman and Brett Summers were on it, I think. And, Toady Fields and her, I think it was. But, that was great. The 70s game shows were the best. Gene Rayburn, the match game was hands down like the best of them all, I think, personally. And I think his funeral was at Hollywood Hills, Forest Lawn. Is he Gambit? I think it was. Tammy Faye. We love Tammy. Tammy Faye, the Evangelist, Tammy Faye Baker, who was the evangelist, married to Jim Baker. She was like, Mrs. Baker. But when Jim Baker and Tammy Faye had a show, I think it was I think they started, was it the 700 Club that they started, the Christian Broadcast Network? And they had hosted a show, and Tammy did singing, and she did puppets. I saw her in concert once, that's right. I went with my friend Mark, and we went to the Orpheum Theater downtown LA, and God bless her, she came out from behind. I remember, and I met her husband in the lobby there too, her last Mesner, and she came in from the back, and she started singing, and her mic wasn't working, and I felt so bad for her, and she just carried on. She was just such a good-natured person, and she just, sang as loud as she could, and then she went to the stage and got on a real mic. But she was great. A lot of people didn't think she would be. I got to meet her once at the whose show was it? Oh, she had a show with Jim Bullock, who it was Jim J and Tammy Faye show, and I was there with my friend Steve. And they were doing a Wizard of Oz thing with people who collected, and I think Jerry Marin the Munchkin was there. And then we were walking in the hallway, and Steve goes, "Do you want a picture with Tammy Faye?" And I go, "I'd love a picture with her if she's cool with it." And she heard me. She goes, "Oh, she's cool with it." And she came over and posed for the picture. That was really cool. That was very special. And her son Jay Baker, has his own ministry, and I listen to his podcast occasionally. And I really am fond of him. And she was in The Surreal Life, and she became really good friends with Ron Jeremy. But she, so kind. I remember they went to a topless. We love Tammy. Michael Jackson. A complicated individual. Because of what happened to him, it sort of overshadows a lot of his accomplishments. They're from Gary, Indiana, the Jackson family, and they had, big hits. And then Michael Jackson went out on his own and had bigger hits. They say that Diana Ross discovered them, but I think that was just Motown putting it out there. But he had an amazing career on his own up until Thriller, and then, Off the Wall, it was a great album. And then Thriller became the album, I think, probably of all time. And then he started sort of going off the rails, and the plastic surgery, and so much plastic surgery. And something I found really curious was that when he married Lisa Marie Presley, and I just listened to her audiobook that Riley Keough narrates that Lisa was going to publish, and it sounded like they were really married, like for real. And God, Michael Jackson used to take their kids to school and stuff like that. It was really interesting. And then I know that he died on Carrollwood. And then Elvis's last home in Los Angeles was right across the street. And then I thought, well, okay, Elvis, the king of rock and roll, lived across from the king of pop. But then I thought, oh my God, Lisa Marie Presley was married to the king of pop. And her father, the king of rock and roll, was across the street. And he's buried at Forest Lawn in the Great Mausoleum. I think I mentioned not that long ago about at W.C. Fields being in the Great Mausoleum. Michael Jackson's in there. They've locked that place down like Fort Knox. I want to go visit my friends in there, and they won't let me. They give me the third degree. What's your friend's middle name? When was his birthday? Because Michael Jackson's in there, and so many psycho Michael Jackson's fans who are completely rabid, a lot of them, are, sort of set up vigils there. Days. Back when he first died, they were letting people stay there. They would walk to where the mausoleum is for a couple miles and stand there or sit outside the gates, and hours. They would hours and hours. Glenn Quinn. Oh, see, he just came up when we talked about Eddie Cochran. Glenn Quinn was, and it's minimal, Glenn Quinn was most famous for being on Roseanne. He played Becky's boyfriend, Darlene's boyfriend on Roseanne. And he was Irish, and I remember he had a lot of problems with drugs. I remember he was part owner of a club in Hollywood, and that's I think it was called the want to say the Golden Buddha, but that's not it. But right in Central Hollywood, he was part owner of this club. And I know that he was staying at a friend's house in North Hollywood, which was right around the corner from the Beverly Garland Hotel. In fact, I took pictures of the place. He died on the couch or on the floor in front of the couch at his friend's house of an overdose. And I know that there was some issue with taking his body out. I don't know, but he is buried at the same place where Karen Carpenter used to be, where Eddie Cochran is, Forest Lawn Cypress. And I remember that they were trying to raise money. The kid that played DJ on Roseanne was trying to raise money to pay for Glenn Quinn's funeral, which made a lot of people angry, because I thought, well, maybe the cast of Roseanne could pay for it because they're all making so much money. But I remember that was what was going on at the time. But I think they let him go more than once from Roseanne because of his problems with drugs, and I'm not sure who went to his funeral. I remember reading more about his mother than I do remember reading about his funeral. But he was well liked by everyone, but just messed up. I wish I could remember the name of that club that he part owner of. Still, the clubs, four clubs or Vivien Leigh, the Vivien. She was an actress who, most famous for Gone with the Wind, played Scarlett O'Hara, the role that everyone wanted. And she was in A Streetcar Named Desire. Those are probably the biggest hits of her. And was she in Wuthering Heights? No, that was Merle Oberon, I think. But she was married very famously to Sir Laurence Olivier, and she didn't live long enough to become a dame, but I don't think. But I remember she lived in Eaton Square, because I used to work at the Royal Court, which is in Sloane Square, just on the other side, Eaton Square. And I believe Louise Rainier took over her house. Vivien Leigh, they say mental illness. She had mental illness. There were all sorts of stories about what she got up to at the end of her life. But they did divorce, and then Olivier married Joan Plowright. But I think that Louise Rainier is who lived in the house that Vivien Leigh died in. And it's all Sharon Tate lived in Eaton Square too. And I did meet Louise Rainier. Well, actually, I didn't meet her. I went to Ian McKellen's 60th birthday party, very starry event. And Louise Rainier was there. And like when I met Cilla Black, I didn't really, but I wanted to walk past them and brush their shoulders so I could say I touched them. So I did rub shoulders literally with Louise Rainier. But Vivien Leigh ended up, I think she's buried on the house. She was a country manor that Titchfield or something like that. That's where her body is buried. And but she was, I think maybe it was undiagnosed mental illness, but she was, I don't know, schizophrenia or something like that. It was sad, very, very sad what happened to Vivien Leigh. That's it, game over. That wasn't as bad. That wasn't too bad. I liked most of those people. And so, okay. Well, thank you for joining me for number 10. Number 10. These things are, I hope I'm not embarrassing myself too much in these things. I feel like I filled the time here. I think I filled the time here. Okay. So thank you for number 10, enjoying these celebrity death roulette, Wheel of Misfortune. And stay tuned for number 11 at some point soon. All right, take care. And hopefully I'll get this thing off my butt soon, and I'll be in much better spirits, and we'll get more of these kicked out. Take care.
You heard me.